So my tip, just go dancing with them.
Hi, I'm Andy.
And I'm Roger,
And welcome to The Middle,
where we try to have thoughtful conversations
about awkward topics.
on our search to find the middle.
We're going to give you last week's news today.
It's a slogan we should put on a t-shirt.
Stop touching her!
I am tonight announcing my candidacy.
Taylor Swift. Look, my biggest issue with marriage is that I think that it's a fundamentally flawed institution that is built on the oppression of women.
I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny.
Having truly rational conversations about controversial issues is risky these days.
Andy,
Hey, Roger.
funny seeing you so soon.
Yeah, it's a little bit a midweek special for us.
Yeah, we're the Hump Day special. That's what we want to be known for in the future. But no, thank you for everyone who tuned into our debate special. We had to jump on it given all our episodes on the US election arc. And I think as a result today, we were going to give a shorter episode. And the reality is that Andy and I have a huge backlog of listener questions that we've been sitting on while we've been dealing with other topics. So I have had the pleasure of plucking one of these listener questions, and we're going to focus on that one today as just a shorter response. And I promise for everyone who has messaged in, we will get to it.
Okay, so Quizmaster Roger.
All right. Hey, Roger and Andy. I've been listening to the show for a while, and I love how both of you navigate so many tricky issues without totally losing it at each other. Well, I won't mix the cut.
Well,
Yeah, no.
some of the times. Must have been before our recent episodes.
We've been sitting on it for a while. I need your help on something quite personal. I, like the two of you, are really energized by having hard but interesting conversations. I don't believe I like to argue for the sake of arguing, but I am drawn to tricky conversations. The problem is, my partner in crime is my wife. And I must say, far too often, these conversations end up in arguments. I genuinely want to share my conversations with her, but it's just such a train wreck. She can't separate a concept from my view, and it always ends up as a caricature of my opinion, often reduced to a vile, misogynistic villain. It's beginning to make me think that women just want a cheerleader and nothing else. To be honest with you, your show has got me into trouble over and over again. Whether it's Israel, Trump, or even your earlier episodes on The Voice, I'm surprised I haven't been banned from listening to you. Is it too much to ask that my partner feels this need from me?
I don't think this is necessarily like a men and women thing, but I think that there's definitely that dynamic. But I think some people just like to debate shit, just like to think about things, or like it's for sport, right?
Mm.
There's a little bit of like the contrarianism thing as well going on. So it's like there's interest in some people, and I think we're probably in this category, enjoy having views which are either counterintuitive or taking perspectives which aren't like obvious. And in fact, we almost seek out like areas where there isn't an obvious perspective to have, or where you can challenge maybe the orthodoxy in terms of, what people are saying about a topic.
Yeah.
And, or where there's a contentious debate about something. Because like virtually every topic we've talked about, like we don't actually have much skin in the game usually. We're usually just sort of quite dispassionate observers, but we become passionate because we enjoy the sport of the discussion.
Well, what about that first point, Andy? Do you ever wonder? I actually really like that line where he's, I don't think I'm someone who likes to argue for the sake of arguing. Do you relate to that kind of, check on your behavior sometimes?
Well, for one, I think that the term argue is like loaded, right? It's like you're just like a violent person.
Disagreeable.
Wants to, you just want to have it in for someone or something, and you just want to have a go with them with something. But actually, it's usually the ideas, right? So, and I think there's like a class of people, and they probably end up being in different types of jobs or, walks of life. Like academics are probably like this, where you certainly people who take any interest in like philosophy or, and especially the kind of like I guess the ecosystem of podcasts that probably you or I listen to. It's the interest in the ideas and the fact that you can live your life in autopilot and just smooth sailing, and you don't have to think about things very deeply, and you can have, that's fine. Like that's a reasonable way to exist.
Some would say a better way to exist.
It's like golf, right? It's like if some people like golf.
Yeah.
We like talking about ideas. So I think to our listener, their respect goes both ways. Like there has to be respect for you as someone who likes to engage in ideas, and then, you know, maybe not just assume that you're like a racist because you want to challenge like some things, you know, about that, and you want to really unpack it. But then equally, if someone's just not up for a discussion about the ins and outs of, you know, whether it's okay to say the N-word, like maybe that's on you too, to like maybe just let sleeping dogs lie. So yeah, I think it goes both ways. And then people you seek out, like in life, you seek out other people like you. We can have these kinds of like conversations.
Yeah. On the N-word, I just want to take a brief foray into a funny story that my daughter told me the other day. She said to me, "Oh, Daddy, there's boys in the playground, right? The boys are always terrible, apparently. Like, so anyway, she's like, and they're always joking around, and they're calling everyone the N-word." I'm like, "What?" It's like, "Yeah, Daddy, do you know what the N-word is?" I'm like, I think I do, but you better clarify. So she came over. We were sitting at the table, and she came around the table, and she like whispered in my ear, and I'm going to change the word just for, you know, for the sake of common decency. And she was like, "Chica," like really drawn out in my ear. And I was like, "Oh my God!" And I'm like, "Are these boys like white boys?" And she's like, "Yeah." And it's like, why are they randomly calling people the N-word? And they're like, "Oh, they think it's really funny." And I just thought to myself, this is crazy. I was like, and of course I did nothing with that information, but I just thought, wow. Anyway.
But this is like PC, PC culture going in circles now. So you're going to have this new generation of counter.
Well, maybe it's that thing you were talking about where the
counterculture,
the younger generation past the younger than the Gen Zs, they don't feel the same about this anymore. They just think
Yeah, I think they take piss. They take the piss out. It's like any kind of conservatism, right? It's like you have the boomers in the 60s, like the hippies, like that was a reaction to the conservative nature of their upbringing, and then, you know, and then we go through these like phases of temperance movements, and, you know, and then there's pushback against that. So, you know, I think that's got to be like this is only funny to these kids because it's taboo, right?
Isn't it amazing that like we're worried about we're gone off the woke waterfall, and then they've got these white boys that are 7 years old in the playground calling everyone, you know.
But that's such a good, like, that's a check on us as a society now. But just to be clear, I'm not advocating that we should go back to like openly like using that word. But like, I think there's they have a sense of these adults are ridiculous. Like, they can see a lot of this stuff for what it is, which is absurdity in a way that it's like do you remember there was that whole craze, and I'm not sure what's happened to it, but the first time there was this notion of like putting your pronouns on stuff, or there's like the different pronouns like they and them and all that stuff, the Z and all that. Like, when that first emerged, it was like apparently like a big schoolyard thing where you would put attack helicopter as
Apache,
your pronoun, and that came from like
that troll internet
that came
culture.
from
But anyway, sorry for taking us off to the path. Coming back to the question, right? So I agree that I'm really torn by this question, because I do believe, and I want to believe, that your partner in crime, the Bonnie to your Clyde, should be able to kind of ride with this kind of thing. And I also have to believe that if you've dated someone and got to know them, you would understand that this is part of their character, and hopefully that was something that attracted you to them in the first place, because deep down I believe that the ability to engage passionately in these kind of conversations and ideas makes a person really interesting and makes life worth living. Like, I think that is what makes a good conversationalist in a lot of ways. So part of me does think that, that's not too much to ask or to want. And actually it's quite a good thing for your relationship to want to actually talk about interesting things as the secret to success, in terms of, you know, many things are taken away from you as you grow together and you age and passions change or whatever. But the last thing to go is your ability to have a really good chat. But I want to go to the next part, because I think that there's something in this next paragraph where he says that he worries that he's always seen as the villain, and he's beginning to think that women just want a cheerleader and never want to be challenged. And I want to kind of get your opinion on that part, because I think that's pointing to something a little bit more problematic.
I don't know. I think that to me reflects that probably, well, when that happens in real life, it's probably just because like the other person doesn't really want to have the conversation. It's a symptom of that. I think it's like it's not understanding where you're coming from because they're not like you. So if you could not think of anything more boring to do than to like hash it out over Israel and Palestine, for example, over a bottle of wine or something, right? It's not in your nature. If that's the furthest possible from the thing you want to be doing, then you can't empathize or develop a mental model for where your partner's coming from when they want to like unpack, like, you know, is it appropriate that Israel's bombing the shit out of Palestine, right? And so then you just become, oh, well, you're just like, you just want to keep going on about this thing, so you must be a champion for Israel, and you're a deplorable human being for not caring about poor refugees, right? So I just think that's like maybe like to Alison, I would just say like maybe pick your audience a bit better, honestly.
Yeah, and I think that I don't know. We're both coming at this from kind of a long-term perspective, right? Where you've already made peace with certain elements of the situation and the relationship or whatever it is, right? So I don't know. I mean, the two things that come to mind here, which again, just initial reactions, but the worrying part for me is that he feels that he's always betrayed in a certain way that's negative, because that to me doesn't lead me to believe it's like what you said, where she just is not up for the conversation, right? She doesn't want to, she's apathetic about it. She doesn't want to have the conversation. She finds it boring or tedious or whatever it is. I think it points to more of a ideological kind of spread where perhaps, dare I say, there's like a more feminist perspective, and there's a reactionary element, given the word he's used is like misogynistic. So I think maybe, look, okay, let's be a bit more blunt here, right? If our man here has a steady diet of like, you know, alpha podcasters like Rogan and other things like that, or even someone like Peterson and you know, Russell, what's his name? Russell,
the English guy, yeah, Russell Brand.
Sorry, Russell Brand. I'm very tired. But say they listen to these kind of like macho alpha kind of podcasters, right? I would say that like if they are serving up these kind of views that have a little bit of like men's rightsy elements to it, they're challenging the norm on some of the feminist doctrine and stuff like that, and you want to, because you know maybe you're excited about that and you just want to explore it, and then you take it to your wife. I think it's a very natural reaction sometimes. There's like, oh, I want to explore why actually, you know, Roe versus Wade being overturned is not that bad, because I heard, you know, actually putting to the states is actually democracy in action. And I want to explore that with you because I just heard that in a podcast. That can quickly go from there to being like, fuck no, my man does not support, you know, taking away my rights to abortion. There can be a bow that's drawn from that. So I think you do need to be careful sometimes around if you're kind of feeding or transmitting some of these more, you know, male-dominated takes on things to your wife or to your partner, and they're kind of, you know, they're also prepped and contextualized and socialized to represent a certain view and stand up for the feminist point of view. I think you should expect a little bit of conflict, right? And I'm not saying that's always what's happening here, but the fact that he's saying he always gets painted as a misogynistic villain, yeah, maybe that could be why. And the Nick's line around thinking that women just want a cheerleader, I think that is also like a bad path to go down, to expect that, you know, I try to fight that urge, right? Try to fight that urge. I don't think that, you know, it's a dangerous road to go down, is all I'd say.
Probably not the best idea to try and take down the gender pay gap with your wife using the 12-point plan in Jordan Peterson's book. Yeah, I just think there's also the other thing going on here. I think it serves us well that we have in our approach to life red flags. We have triggers. We have things which like say, this is like a bit of a warning sign for us. And because at the end of the day, there's so many different things we've got to navigate in life that we can't possibly know the ins and outs of everything. So, for example, if your partner comes to you and says, I was at the train station and someone gave me this brochure of this thing. Have you ever heard of Jehovah's Witnesses or insert kind of cultish religious institution? To be honest, I know not very much about Jehovah's Witnesses. However, I know that they've got not the best of reputations, right? And I think the thing is, like with these things, like if someone came to me and said, "Oh, I'm going to Jehovah's Witness, I've joined the chapter, the local chapter or whatever," I'd be a bit cautious. I'd be asking, maybe even asking, are you really, are you on the right? Is this really what you want? Do you really know anything much about them? Do you know, like, I think what happens with a lot of these things, so the moment someone says, "Oh, I read this Jordan Peterson thing," that it immediately triggers a lot of like red flags for particularly women, probably more so for women than for men, but, definitely, the non-Jordan Peterson loving segment of the community. Same with like a lot of those kind of podcasts, that whole scene, like, and it is a bit of an ecosystem.
The manosphere.
Yeah. And I think we as humans, like, we have to accept our own limitations too, that sometimes you can get trapped in some of these.
For sure.
Like, and it is good to have someone to maybe bring to earth you, bring you back to the middle, because it's very tempting to, we know how this stuff works, the psychology of this stuff. You see something appeals to you because it touches on your own biases to begin with. And then you read more and it makes you more confident in whereas really what you should be doing is critically analyzing this stuff. And sometimes that's...
And social media...
unless you have a partner calling you out.
And social media doesn't help, right? Like, you only have to linger a little bit too long on a Jordan Peterson clip, and then all of a sudden you're getting all sorts of things in your feed, right? So I think that the echo chambers are real. What I would say actually as a good challenge to this listener, if he really wants to, if anything we've said to you or I've characterized actually is playing out and you're having trouble and you're getting split on like male issues versus female and feminist kind of views, I actually think a really good course of action would be to listen to a female's point of view in the kind of things that you listen to. So for example, hit up Mamma Mia, right? And I think that is like, that's going to inoculate you really well, because when you first listen to it, if you've never listened to that kind of thing, you will really resist it and you'll kind of hate the style and all this kind of stuff. But after you sink in for a while and you try to kind of empathize, it will give you a really good window into how women perhaps come or share their perspective on the same kind of issues that we're talking about, right? And I actually think that if you can, to your point, counter some of your bookshelf with the other side, and at the very least, it'll expose your own biases. But ultimately, like, women love talking about this stuff too, but it's a different style. And I think that's why Mamma Mia is so popular, because they do it in a style that works for them. And so part of being a good partner is actually, negotiation, meeting them halfway, communicating in a way that's pleasant for everyone. And maybe just challenge yourself. Like, listen to Mamma Mia for a week.
So my tip, just go dancing with them or just do whatever they want to do. I think, you got to find the things you're both interested in. And it's obviously not having intellectual debates. And I think that's okay. I don't think that has to be a feature.
You can understand why he thinks it should be, though.
I think it's a little bit naive, to be honest. Like, I think most people, and I would include men in this category too, most people don't want to have intellectual conversations, Most people don't want to have debates. Most people aren't of that mindset. So I think you should want to have good conversations with your partner, but I think the conversation should be like the Venn diagram where you have like overlapping areas of interest as opposed to... And it's not going to give you what you want. It obviously isn't, because that's why you're writing a letter to us. So, I don't know. Go dancing, take her out for a date, or take him out for a date. I don't know if we've identified the...
No, but I also think that you can't be all things to all people, right? Like, I'm not saying that you need multiple wives to make your life complete. I'm saying that there are some times you want to have locker talk. You go,
they've got a harem. They've got a harem in us.
But no, I'm serious though. Some things you have to find certain people for certain things, right? Like, and that's okay. You can supplement it, right? I feel like in modern relationships, we do put too much intellectual pressure, too much social pressure, too codependent at times. It's a big role being a husband or a wife. And I think that you just have to go easy on yourself, right? And not put too much pressure on either one of you. It's taken us a while to respond to this question. I hope they're not divorced already. With that, our precious advice.
All right. Well, enjoy your week.
You too.